Hello everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk, where we also sing our intro and do some sort of weird vibration off thingy. Anyway, so today on Let's Talk, I'm going to talk about acceptance. So, what is acceptance? It's a game, basically. I'll get into why basically soon, but it is a game. Your role in the game is you're a trans person, so it's made for people who aren't trans. It kind of goes through a day, or part of a day. Doesn't seem like it'd be a whole day in the game, but it goes through a day in the life of a trans person, and essentially what they have to go through on day-to-day basis, or during maybe what is a particularly bad day. I'm not sure if this would be a typical day. That's basically what the game is. I will talk about who wrote it and who the art and music and all that sort of stuff in the description, so look in there if you want it. It's also probably going to be all over some tweets. But yeah, that's not why I'm talking about it. This isn't a review, it's just me talking about the game. So, what do you do in the game? Well, as this is a Twine game, it's more of a interactive story than an actual just pure game. So it starts off, and the first thing it does is asks you what your gender is. So now, no matter what you click after this, it will say you're not. So if you click you're a man, it will say no you're not. If you click you're a woman, it will say no you're not a woman. So you click man and it will say no you're a woman. You click woman and it will say no you're a man. So you go through the story. It asks you choices, and no matter what choice you pick, the eventual outcome is always negative. Always, without fail. So start game. I clicked man because I'm a man. And it said, no, you're not a man, you're a woman. So the story goes on, blah, blah, blah. You go to a cinema, then you need the toilet. Easy decision for everyone. I'm a man, so I go in the men's room, right? But it's just told you you're not a man. So do you go in the women's one, or do you go in the men's one? There's also disabled one. Disabled toilet. If you go into the man's one, you get harassed by some men. And they say, what's a woman doing in this bathroom? You go into the woman's one, and the woman goes, what's a man doing in here? Yeah, then you go on, you go throughout your day, so you're given choices. One of them, nearer to the end, so you fall unconscious at one point. Somebody wakes you up. So you fall unconscious because you can't breathe, because you're wearing a binder, I believe it's called, which hides the fact you have breasts. Which I don't see the need. Like, why would you need to? But that's another question. Like, I can actually understand why somebody would need that. If they don't identify as that gender, then they don't want to be that gender. They want to be seen as the other one. So, yeah, that's another whole big question. Yeah, I guess it's more society's outlook on that person. But anyway, so fall unconscious because I can't breathe, not enough oxygen and that lot, and been in quite a stressful situation. And so you're woken up, your binder's been cut by somebody who's helpful enough. Then you're asked, so the game asks you, do you want to wait for an ambulance, or do you want to go straight home? So it's this sort of question, which changes the outcome slightly. It will just change the kind of text you see, but the outcome will, again, always be negative. So if you go straight back home, you basically say, no, I'm going home, you get up and you walk home. If you wait for the paramedics come around and then have a short conversation with the paramedics and say, I'm going home, bye. So this whole day that's existed, it's been quite bad for you, as the character. And you go home and you decide, do you know what, this day has been too much for me. And, I don't want tomorrow to be the same. I'm scared that tomorrow is the same. So you end up committing suicide, which obviously isn't very good I mean, it's a bit of an understatement. Yeah. So essentially, that's what happens through the game. I'm not wanting to talk too much about specifics in the game. Just to say that it's not necessarily something that everybody should play, but it's definitely a game that everybody should be aware of the content, because it's not a game for fun. It's a game more for learning, but not in the way that, like, oh, let's learn English or let's learn this thing. It's more education, so like social education, teaching somebody how somebody thinks more, or like how another group of people think, and kind of teaching you to empathize with them maybe a little bit. Yeah, it kind of brings out a lot of questions. Yeah, so one way it kind of asks the questions and makes you think is by literally taking away all player control. You have no control over what happens. It looks like you do, you think you do, you have a choice. Am I a man, am I a woman? Shall I go in the disabled or the women's bathrooms? Shall I go home now or shall I later? Like, whatever happens, whatever you pick, every single option always ends in you committing suicide. Yeah, you get to the last screen, and instead of being able to click continue, there's only one thing you can click, which is give up. So now, if you click that, you take some pills. It's not a successful suicide, because you end up waking up, and then you go to hospital. Yeah, and they essentially make you throw it all up. So using pills, they make you throw it all up, which it's hospitals. But for me, this game brought up a lot of questions about, like, have I ever done this, or have I ever looked at someone the wrong way, or like not necessarily the wrong way, like you're rubbish or that sort of thing, but like, what are you doing here, that sort of thing. I think that worries me. I'm not really sure entirely. Like that's a thing about this game that I think I'm an accepting person, and I accept people's beliefs for what they are. Is that just like propaganda I'm putting in my own head? Then another kind of big thing, I guess, well, definitely a big thing, is the question of, so that the social side of the social side of this game, not in terms of socializing, but society, is that, yeah. So I've heard arguments about accepting people, and we're only just at a stage in society that we accept gay people. You know, homosexuality in this society is only literally very recently a thing which is accepted by, well, reasonably accepted by a decent proportion of the planet. Like Ireland and a few other countries have only recently allowed same-sex marriages. We need to go on and this is the argument. Next, we need to, after we accept homosexuality, we need to accept bisexuality, and then we need to accept like all these sort of sexualities and blah blah blah. And the arguments I've heard is that that's easy for people to accept because it's not much different from normal. Does that make sense? So they can empathize with that more than somebody wanting to change their entire gender. Which the argument against that, against being trans, is that it's unnatural and shouldn't happen because you're the gender you're given, so shut the fuck up and just deal with it. That's kind of an idea that people have, which, now to be controversial, I sort of do agree with. Now, to caveat that, I also believe, and this may seem contradictory to what I've just said, but I also believe that if somebody truly believes what they believe in, so be it religion or the fact that they're not actually that the gender that they've been born as, and etc etc etc, like if they believe that and that's what they feel, then they should be allowed to believe that without prosecution, without social pressures being put on them for being who they are, without, whatever it is, without being segregated, essentially. Like, basically, we should all get along, right? So even though I don't necessarily agree that you should be able to change your sexuality, I also think that that's because that's me, I don't want to. So that's quite a pig-headed kind of idea to think, and that this is the sort of thing that acceptance has made me think about. Yeah, so maybe my viewpoint on that is wrong, and I don't know. Maybe I should think something else. But I think what I think, so I don't know. Like, is it wrong? I don't know. Is it wrong? But according to society, being trans is wrong. Well, in fact, according to society, being many things is wrong, except what the norm in inverted commas is. But anyway. Yeah, so I think that everybody should be able to do what they want to do. Obviously, some level, but what they believe is what they believe, and they should be allowed to believe it. But also, it's their body, so as long as there is a safe medical way of doing something, I emphasize safe medical way of doing something, which doesn't cause long-term, like, catastrophic issues, then why should they not be allowed to do it? Like, why should they not be allowed to have the choice to do something they want to do? Because it's what they believe in and it's their body, so they can do what they want. So shouldn't we accept that? Yeah, it's like, it brings up a lot of questions that I think do definitely need answers, but they can't necessarily be answered, if that makes sense. I think in inverted commas, the answers are, we should just allow people to be who they want to be without persecution and without that person fearing harm, be it mental or physical. Like, if you see someone who maybe looks slightly womanly in a men's toilet, even if that person identifies themselves as a man and they're going through that change, should we then say, no, you're not allowed to be in here, you're not a man, even though they in their head are a man? Which, I mean, begs the question, like, should we have men's and women's toilets? Like, should they just be unisex? Which, yes, they should be, as long as there are, I don't want to say dividers in the toilets, but as long as, like, there is a certain level of privacy for both the men and the women. So, stalls being floor to ceiling, and maybe the urinals being, I don't know, like, slightly closed off, or whatever. I don't know, like, it's, the game acceptance isn't a game on its own that you should just sit there and go, maybe this is a bit shit doing this, like, maybe we should be nicer people. I don't know. I think it's a game that speaks to a wider issue, not just of the trans issue, but of believing what you want kind of issue, that I think some people are a bit narrow-minded, and I'm definitely guilty of being narrow-minded. No one can say that they're not guilty. Well, I mean, some people can say they're not guilty of it, but I think this speaks to a larger issue that definitely does need to be addressed, but maybe it will be through speaking about it and that sort of thing. So games like Acceptance, and I don't know if there are any others. If there are more, share them with me. I urge everyone not necessarily to play Acceptance, as I said, but maybe just to think about what somebody else's perception of you is, possibly, without looking at yourself going, I'm the greatest person ever, I never take the piss out of anyone. Without doing that, maybe the way you look at someone occasionally may come across as a bit aggressive, or may come across as, I don't know, whatever. There are so many different variations of everything that I can't just say, this example of this, because it's impossible. But maybe just think, and I definitely will be as well, hopefully. confusing times we live in, where nothing is binary, which I guess is good. Like, having binary gives you a narrow viewpoint, this or that. You are either straight or gay, you are either man or woman. Yeah, this thing is good or bad. Like, in a world of binary, I think we get lazy and we don't think about the middle section. Like, something can be okay. It doesn't necessarily need to be good or bad. The game just takes all player agency away from you and makes you feel powerless to change anything. So that's acceptance. That's my ramble for a little while about the game, and my thoughts shall be with me, I guess. Thanks for listening or watching. As a white, male, Western person, I'm not really segregated much, and I think acceptance tells me, look, twat, stop being privileged. Check your privilege. But in a way that's like, not check your privilege because I'm an internet asshole. It's more, check your privilege because there are people that are pretty shitly treated that shouldn't be, because they're also human. And I think that's a lesson that everybody can learn. Check your privilege.